we're going to talk a lot around disruptions today, and you have a very interesting and relevant history when it comes to disruptions. Maybe you can walk us through a little bit of your professional career.
My family immigrated from Spain, but I grew up in Venezuela and moved to the US, to Silicon Valley, right at the time where internet was brewing and the late 80s. I was a computer scientist, but then I stayed in McKinsey in Silicon Valley. Was one of the founders of the office. So it was a great time to observe the emergence of all these new companies. And then eventually, I actually moved to Europe, and I joined Nokia. And I mean, from a point of view of disruption, Nokia is probably the biggest one that has been. So when I speak about disruption, I base it on a lot of observations from other companies, but very personally from what I felt in Nokia from 2004 to 2011.
Yeah, because you were there during the famous disruption years, the years of we did nothing wrong, but still somehow we failed, those type of years, right?
Yeah, no, I joined in 2004, and
Mm.
people forget that even though Nokia was already quite important in 2004, um, the growth until 2008 was spectacular.
Yeah.
We went through a period of tremendous growth, and then I saw the early years of the decline, and I left in early 2011 with the conviction that we were in the wrong path and we already had lost a fair amount of value, but the next few years were really incredibly destructive. I mean, it was really incomprehensible for most what happened to Nokia, because it was one of those companies that was completely admired, that was considered to
Mm.
be so strong in so many ways.
Can you tell me and the audience the kind of iPhone launch story? Because I think there's a dynamic there that's so interesting when we speak about disruptions.
One of the concepts of my comic book, which is called the Z curve, it
Mm.
talks about how disruption happens, and disruption tends to sneak in and happen much more slowly than what people think. And then, frankly, a lot of the incentives are not there in for you to really make the right action. So, in the case of Nokia, to make it very precise, I mean, when you look at the launch of the iPhone is launched at the beginning of 2007, and comes to the market in the summer of 2007. And but Nokia records the best results ever in their history in 2008. So
Yeah, the year after.
well over a year
Mm.
after the iPhone. So I mean, for a lot of people, the iPhone, first of all, was some American phenomenon, because we were not really in America per se. And then, I mean, we had very minimal presence at the time. And then the second thing is, they thought it was okay. So it's a niche, high end thing. We did not believe that there was a very large group of people that were willing to pay more than 300 euros at the time for a phone. And it turns out that when you actually provide them with something that is truly differential, like
Yeah.
uh, like like the iPhone, a lot of people were willing to pay that.
That's super interesting. And can we go back to maybe it's a good idea to frame the book in general, the C curve. That's part of how we met. We have the same publisher in Lid. Tell me, what's the reason why you wrote the book, and what's the central thesis of the book?
I wrote the book very much inspired on my experience in Nokia. I think
Mm.
a lot of people ask me about what happened, and also I read a lot of accounts. I mean, there's books about Nokia, and so I've been reflecting a lot on why the dynamics of a company that's going through disruption often don't end up in the right place. And
Mm.
so that was really the inspiration. And then, frankly, the other thing is that I feel that that's extremely relevant to the times today, because I mean, we have always had disruption. I think
Yeah.
people forget that every time there is an introduction of a new technology, some incumbents don't make it. So, and clearly the previous technology doesn't. Whether that's the printing press or the inventor of the invention of the fridges or
Yeah.
internet. Clearly, we are in a time with AI where the threat of disruption is very large. So I was trying to think about what are the patterns that happen during disruption. And I mean, then the central thesis, it comes down to two specific things. I mean, one is the the mechanics of disruption in some way mirror the mechanics of adoption of a new technology, which is kind of an obvious thing, but not something that a lot of people have explored. So when you think about the a new technology, it gets adopted along an S curve, and there's a certain psychological dynamics that we can get into around it. The S curve is simply a curve where it shows the growth over time of a technology, and usually what happens is it goes slow for a while, it accelerates, and then it tapers when it gets to a
Mm.
certain level of penetration. So when you are having a disruption, you're having the opposite dynamic. So so what happens is that disruption comes in, sneaks in, like we were mentioning at Nokia, and then at the time the disruption starts to hit you,
Mm.
it's hitting you very hard. The decline is very fast, and then your options are minimal. So you need to be able um, to act before the disruption is really affecting you in a significant way, which is actually very, very difficult. The second theme, if you want, that I explore in the book, which is why management teams often uh, are not able to act, and it doesn't. Sometimes people don't see it, but the majority of time people do see it, but there's a lot of pressure in the short term to not make a radical change because you have to make the radical change ahead of the reality of the disruption. And these are the core ideas of the book.
You were speaking about that lots of the incentives aren't really pulling you in the direction of dealing strongly enough with the threats of disruptions. Let's elaborate on what are those incentives and really unpack it because I do think it's so relevant to anyone in this audience right now because most of them are going through probably some type of disruption is happening around them, but maybe it hasn't really hit the books yet. So they're in this kind of false sense of security period, perhaps right now.
If you look at the development of a company, I mean, typically companies start with some form of innovation. They build their product, and over time they become very good at optimizing. You're figuring out how to sell a bit more. What's the
Mm,
right pricing so I get a bit more profit? How to take a bit more cost out, and your investors, your partners, your employees are all incented on that. So what happens in a time of disruption is you actually need to make some radical changes, and those radical changes often have implications in the sense of maybe you need to hit your short term profits in some way. Maybe
mm,
maybe there's some people changes that you need to make that are very hard. Maybe you need to make an acquisition that is risky,
mm,
and these things are not particularly incented by the people around you. I mean, if you're a CEO in those situations, first thing you find is that your team often doesn't want to do change. I mean, if we go back to
yeah.
to the Nokia example, I mean, when the iPhone launches, there were some of us that were pushing for a really more radical change, but there's a lot of people. The head of sales is saying, "What are you talking about? We're doing great. We just had the best quarter of our history. I mean,
Yeah.
don't mess with that." You will have some of that internally, and then your investors are going to tell you the same thing. And frankly, this is happening right now with a lot of, for example, in the software space,
Yeah.
with the impact of AI, a lot of software companies are being penalized if they actually start to do embrace AI in a way that may create uncertainty in the short term. They're also have been being hit, and to the point that sometimes even CEOs have lost a job because of that.
And it's so interesting that if you try to follow the money, because it's the same story with the famous Kodak example, right? That the
Exactly.
primary revenue and margin makers was the chemicals and the film, the physical film. That's what they were protecting because that was what was making them money, right? So it's always interesting in periods of disruption, looking at what is our legacy business that is the margin driver, and maybe that's the kind of high trying to protect that margin is the highest threat of becoming blind to the disruption.
I think there's two things. I mean, one is, of course, when you're in a business model, and usually, I mean, we're talking about disruption of very successful companies. Kodak was very successful, but so was, for example, Sun Microsystems,
Mm,
Digital Equipment Corporation. I mean, in the tech space, Novell. I mean, there are some really big names
mm,
at the time that we don't even remember now because they've been more or less they've been more or less disrupted into non-existence. Even IBM, that is still is a very strong company today, but it's not doesn't have the same prominent role that it had at the beginning of computing.
mm,
Um, but what tends to happen with these companies is two things. I mean, one is they their incentives are to protect the way they make money at the moment, which
mm.
often is very well thought out. It's not a stupid thing at all. I mean, people say, "Oh, they missed it or they didn't get this thing." No, they actually have developed this really sophisticated model to extract value from what they do. But suddenly, as the world changes, what they do is not relevant anymore. And then the second part of it is sometimes the skills that you need are quite different. I use a lot of this metaphor to describe disruption, which is the image from Indiana Jones, the first Indiana Jones movie. I don't know. Maybe you're too young to have seen that, but
No, I'm not too young. I was a big fan of Indiana Jones a few years back.
they're greatly entertaining movies. But there's this one scene which is very comic and iconic when where the Nazis are pursuing Indy in a market supposedly in Cairo, but I think it was Morocco. And at some point, this swordsman with a big scimitar shows up, and he just makes a display of skill. And then Indy looks at him and pulls his revolver and shoots him.
Yeah,
Exactly, and look, that's exactly what happens with technological disruption. Is this the swordsman is probably incredibly accomplished. I mean, he
yeah,
probably has fought many times and won many times, and
yeah.
he's got the best sword. And but nothing matters in this new world where there are guns.
We have a bunch of military history examples of this, right? With the invention of
Absolutely.
yeah,
Uh, there are plenty of those from the walls and castles
yeah,
to the Maginot Line to other things. So the things that hold you back are two things. One is your own uh, incentives, ways of thinking, your business model, and the other thing is your own skills. And sometimes your skills, like I would say, for example, in the case of Nokia, what Nokia needed to do to compete with Apple wasn't really that far off from what they know how to do. I mean, in many ways, Nokia had already invented a lot of things, but for some companies, it's a big move. I mean, for example, I mean for Kodak, it was harder in some ways because they really have expertise in chemicals and so forth,
yeah.
and not so much a digital ecosystem around photography.
And it's interesting, right? Because it kind of highlights the Indiana Jones story, highlights the point of view that it will never matter how good a swordsman you are, and you have a tendency as a company to kind of double down on what got you to the party when things are getting a little bit rough, right?
That
I've had in parallel to this, I've had a bunch of discussions because obviously I work in AI, so I have a lot of these discussions and think a lot around this, and especially with CEOs. Some of them are telling me something very interesting, and we spoke about this earlier as well. As a consequence of the economic situation in the general market, we've spent 3 to 5 years perfecting the art of cost saving, operational efficiency, not inventing, not taking risk. That's what we've been training and really rewarding, and it becomes almost like a culture of not taking risks, not inventing, just optimizing that last percentage points to kind of squeeze through into our profit targets, right? And now all of a sudden, we're expected to do something differently, looking at our business processes from a completely new perspective. And these are almost like completely different skills. And maybe over a 5 year time, maybe we've hired all of our managers only based on, operational excellence capabilities. And this is, to me, really, really interesting right now.
I think you're hitting something really, really important because, um, companies after a certain point they become optimizers, and
Yeah,
it's really interesting. I mean, actually, there's a very very interesting interview from Steve Jobs. It's called I think they call it the
the lost
hidden
tapes.
or the lost interview.
Yeah, yeah, the
It
lost
was an
interview. Yeah.
interview. They asked him a bit about what happened with Xerox PARC, which is another story of disruption. I mean, Xerox
Mm,
invented most of the technology that we associate with personal computing, Windows, pointing devices, the graphical user interface, et cetera, et
mm,
cetera. What Steve Jobs does is he describes a bit the life cycle of Xerox, and it really is a very general pattern. I mean, you when you start a company early on, you often are in the process of inventing. You try to find what the customers want, and your
yeah.
your product usually is the one that takes you to a certain point. Um, and over time, that product thinking gets displaced by optimization thinking. You get the people who are better at marketing, selling, because that's what
Mm,
matters. At a certain point, what you want to do is to sell more and so forth. But then, in a perverse way, I mean, because you end up hiring only people who are optimizers, you get a culture that forgot completely how to innovate. And
mm.
I think it's really important. One of the key messages of my book is, I think, is for any company to keep that product innovation thinking as part of their DNA is a really important element.
Yeah, and I think one of the kind of sneaky things with the AI disruption is that it might not be the total eclipse type of we have a completely new technology that is making our sword technology fundamentally irrelevant. It's more, it's happening everywhere. It's a death by a thousand cuts. It's a little bit more subtle in a way, and but that also makes it more dangerous, I feel. What's your take on like disruptions that are of that nature?
Yeah, that's super super interesting. Look, I look at disruptions and I put them into three buckets. You have the total disruption, which is,
Mm,
basically your entire business is at risk, and if you don't survive, your business is gone, or you become a really small niche business from. And
mm,
this is what happened with Nokia, for example.
yeah,
There's sometimes there's a partial disruption where you have basically a technology that replaces part of your market, but not all of it. So,
yeah,
I mean, for example, ebooks took a fair chunk of the book market, but actually had more or less plateau, and still people read more physical books than ebooks. That might change over time with new
yeah,
generations, but so far it's been a Z curve that stopped before it completely
yeah.
hit the mainstream of bookmaking.
You have a similar
But
example of
then
the
you have this
ATMs
other.
in bank offices, right? And like kind of how payments change as well.
Yes, I mean, well, but in banking, there's a different kind. There's a little bit of the partial disruption, for example, with companies like Revolut and
Mm,
other new financial services companies. They're taking customers from banks, but not that many so far. But then you have what I call functional disruptions, where it doesn't disrupt your entire product, but it disrupt the way you operate. And
mm,
in banking, for example, it's a really interesting space because it probably started with the invention of the ATM, and
mm,
the ATM um, really replaced some of the things that that banks did in branches. It actually changed the way branches operated. We can go down into a bit more of that with digital banking. Again, it kept on changing so much the way the industry worked that it's easy to say, well, but that's not a big deal because all banks have actually been able to adapt. No bank has gone bankrupt, and that's true. But we have had huge consolidation of the space.
Yeah.
We had, most banks are worth a lot less proportionally than they were when they started. A few banks, like J.P. Morgan, for example, or well, it's not a bank, but Ping An's, an insurance company in China, have shown that you can really be an innovator. But at
Mm,
the same time, you have some new players, and for example, Visa and Mastercard
mm.
have emerged out of these infrastructure of digital payments, and out of they're now the two of the three most valuable companies in finance, other than J.P. Morgan is the only bank that is more valuable than those guys.
Interesting as well when you come in from if you're the disruptor in terms of being Visa or Mastercard, because obviously they are exceptionally profitable as well. You can look at the legacy business and say, we just want to capture the kind of high margin thing, and that's what like looking at historical examples of disruptions. That is what is most often the first thing that the new entrants go after, the high margin business, and then you're kind of left both with like we have a legacy business, which is the perhaps high volume but very low margin business that these new guys don't even have to kind of take into account when they build out their business.
Look, at the end of the day, if you're a capitalist and you're having a new venture, you're going to
Yeah,
where the profits are, or
yeah,
where the profits are going to be, where you believe the profits are going to be.
mm,
So, I mean, if they are part of the business systems of your competitors that you don't need to replicate because they don't
mm.
give you any profit and don't give you any advantage with the customer,
Yeah,
and that
exactly. And it's
then
also a technology question, right? Because many of the banks they struggle with that are software is built in the 80s on Cobalt, right? And obviously Revolut wouldn't build their software that way, and they can be much more nimble and fast and customer centric.
100%. I mean, look. I think uh, the use of new technology often allows you to rethink your business, and this
Mm,
is one of the things I recommend to any company. I mean, if you think, for example, about AI, and you are, it doesn't matter, you're a legal company, or you're in finance. Um, think about how would you build if you step out of here and and you get a venture capital that gives you 100 million or whatever amount of money, a significant amount of money. How would you build your business from scratch in a different way today?
yeah.
And most likely that will tell you where your attackers are going to come and what maybe you need to rethink.
Yeah, 100%. And this is it's very close to home for me because obviously that was one of the most fun questions when building the company that I run, Grail, looking at what would management consulting be knowing that AI is a thing. And then you start looking, and this is relevant for really any type of service business, really. What did we used to do with manual hours that makes no sense doing with manual hours? I think in a consulting business, doing
Yeah.
customer interviews, for example. You pay the same hours for me, but in Grail, for example, we run these over voice agents, for example, or voice notes, and we just transcribe it. It doesn't make sense. But then you can also think, okay, what does that enable us to do if we kind of skip out that used to be a choke point of scheduling and you only have so many consultants? In our business model, we can interview a whole company over a week of, 700 people or something like that. It's so interesting once you like take out a choke point. And that, like the core thinking of this, for me, it kind of clicked when I heard Anton from Lovable speak around what changes as a consequence of vibe coding. And when he spoke around like the choke point in software engineering has always been the software engineers. That's
Yes.
what's expensive. That's what takes time. And what happens if we just remove that choke point? And it's so interesting in really any business process, finding what used to be the legacy choke point or the most expensive part of this process. And if we assume that that's no longer a choke point or the expensive part, what are things that we now could do that we couldn't before? And that to me is like incredibly exciting and fun to think about.
I think when you look at AI, for example, but any new technology, I think AI is so pervasive that it will affect almost anyone. So
Mm,
the key thing is, I mean, of course, there's elements of it that are scary. I mean, there are probably parts of what you do that will have to change in a significant way. You don't know exactly how. You will have people changes, a lot of things that are complicated, but it's also exciting. I say it also opens up new opportunities. It's like, but your example of being able to interview 700 people is a great situation. And so, how can we use that to create
yeah.
some really amazing insights? So, anyhow, I really think it's that attitude when you're facing disruption, having the attitude of, hey, how can I use these? Yes, I
Mm.
understand there's some scary aspects about how it threatens me, but also how can I use it? And often, if you do it right, you can create completely new things.
Yeah, the existential threat is also the opportunity of a lifetime, and that to me is like it's two sides of the same coin.
I studied and strategies that people follow to deal with disruption successfully. I mean, there's plenty of examples of people who have failed with in front of a disruption, but there are examples of people um, who have managed to do it. And
You lay
I
out a
I
few of
we,
these in the book very clearly. I want to actually walk these through in order. You have, if I
Great.
remember correctly, there were 5 strategies for actually combating disruption, right, in your book.
There's six, but because
6.
there's dreams.
Oh yeah.
So the dream strategies are really. I tried to look at a lot of different examples of people who have successfully combated disruption, and then I look at, okay, what are they doing? And frankly, they often do a mix of all the things that I'm or various of these things. But let's start with the D, which is disrupt, disrupting yourself. So this is what everyone one tells you. Okay, so if you're facing a disruption, the best thing you can do is disrupt yourself.
Mm,
It's actually true, but it's super hard. There's actually very few examples of people who have done it. We tend to forget that Netflix started competing. They started as a disruptor, but they were competing by sending you CDs at your home.
yeah.
And the skills and the capabilities that you need, other than managing subscriptions, n- almost nothing that
Yeah, that's a
Netflix
logistics
did at the beginning
company,
had anything to.
mostly like handling the distribution of
Yes, I mean,
DVDs,
it's
right?
like you have a
Yeah,
warehouse and
yeah,
it's logistics and
yeah,
you want to make sure that people return you
yeah.
so it's completely different business model. But they saw the opportunity of streaming, and they were fighting against people that were much bigger.
Mm.
Amazon, a lot of the studios themselves. I mean, everyone was trying to get there, and they eventually became the first one. So it's an interesting story because they actually made a lot of mistakes along the way. They had bad moments, but overall, through vision and determination, they were able to do it. So that's kind of the maybe the most I mean, this is like the most epic strategy if you want. This is like I say,
The
I'm
hero
gonna disrupt
strategy.
myself.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, but it's also the most difficult. So the other strategies are also extremely valuable. The next strategy is to reshape yourself, and this has a little bit to what you were saying before around the payments, how this payments company went after a part of what the banks were doing that was highly profitable. They skipped some of the other stuff. Um, well, why didn't a bank think of that? Why didn't they create their own? I mean, there's some challenges because you have to do it up for other other competitors and so forth. But there's a really good example, which is Qualcomm. Um, Qualcomm is maybe not a household name, but it's one of the most valuable silicon companies in the world, and one of the most important companies behind mobile technology. So these guys invented a technology called CDMA that competed with the standard that we were using to start, particularly in Europe, the standards of GSM, which were the first standards for phones. And eventually, these guys were about to go bankrupt because they can't they make phones, they make the equipment, so they were kind of like a Nokia, like a mini Nokia, but they were
Mm.
failing. They were doing really badly. So what they realized is the only way they could actually turn this around is by focusing only on a few parts and getting an ecosystem around them that allow them to do this. So they sell their handsets, they sell their networks, and then they just concentrate on making the chipsets and the IP, and they have become incredibly successful at doing that. So
Can I
so
ask a
so
clarifying
there
question then on the reshaping
yes.
strategy? Does that mean that you go through your business, your current business, and look at what part of this business is actually profitable, and then focusing on that and kind of divesting from the other parts? Is that the reshape strategy?
This also could be that maybe you realize that some of this profitable business needs to be somewhat independent.
Mm,
So, so for example, in Europe, there are from the top three software companies, two of them were spun off or were created by existing companies. One is Amadeus, and the other one is Dassault Systems. Dassault Systems is super interesting. So Dassault it's a company that makes airplanes and military equipment, and then they develop a lot of technology for their own design of planes. And then
mm,
suddenly they realize, oh, this stuff is actually quite valuable. This software is very valuable, but if we keep it in, it's very difficult to get other third parties
mm,
to buy it. So they decided to separate that. They actually did initially was a joint venture with IBM. They separated that as a unit. They maintain a fair amount of ownership, so they actually benefit from that.
mm,
But they kept the two business differently because they have different dynamics. Today, Dassault is a very successful company making planes, but Dassault Systems is a even more successful
mm.
company that sells software to other aviation companies, to car companies.
Mm.
It's a global leader in design software.
Let's move forward. The E.
So the E is for extending, and what happens, and it's a very good example of when Microsoft was facing an attack from the early browsers, from Netscape and others. They, I mean, when you have a situation like that, what Microsoft realizes, well, we don't have really a browser, we don't have really an immediate sort of internet connection, but we do have a lot of things that are very important to companies around the world. So we're going to begin to attach internet into everything that we do.
Mm,
They acquire a browser, and they started to extend their product and almost embracing that. I mean, Microsoft was accused of doing using monopoly power and doing those
yeah.
and but if you're strong, it's certainly a viable option to do. And and a related version is if you're also a leader at the beginning, you can acquire other companies.
Yeah.
You can use your strength to acquire what you need. And I mean, there's Adobe, for example, is a great example of a company that was focused purely on print. They get a little surprised by internet, and little by little they went acquiring companies that allow them to go from being a relatively niche print
Mm,
player to being a leader in content and marketing across across the entire stack. So that was a really good one. And maybe the what Cursor what Elon Musk has done with Cursor in the last few days. Um, it's a bit similar. I mean, it has a bit of a unique Elon Musk element because he just had this 2 trillion IPO, but then he recognizes that, hey, I have now a an equity to buy Cursor, which gives me a real chance of competing in the AI race because Grok
Mm.
was not really quite moving at the same speed. So I think acquisition is as the other. So E is for extend and A is for acquire.
And acquire is interesting because there are like positive examples, obviously, of large companies really buying innovation and being able to integrate it into the company. But you have equally as many acquisitions that ends up being just folded in and forgotten.
You are 100% right. the 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 most acquisitions fail.
Yeah,
But the paradox is that the most successful companies are often very heavy acquirers.
yeah,
So acquisition is a very viable tool, but you have to use it properly. It's just because you bought some little thing and you let it kind of die in there in the corner
yeah,
is
and
that
kill the
doesn't count
spirits
for
of
anything.
the
Really
entrepreneur who
embrace it.
who was bought up.
And by the way, there's a lot of those. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of companies have bought innovative companies and just kind of let them stay for a bit, but they don't really make the commitment to say, "Hey, we are really going to take these to our customers. We're going to
Mm.
really integrate it," and in some cases, getting rid of eating my own young, if you like.
Yeah,
When
absolutely.
which is you have to do. You have to be willing to do that.
We're gonna go into a little bit later the culture within these companies around like speaking truth to power and stuff like that. But I want to finish out the kind of strategies.
Yeah.
So can we move on to
Yeah.
the
So,
M and the
so,
S?
so the next one is the M for migrate, and this is basically, I mean, this is maybe not the most exciting model, but it's actually, I mean, it's a very practical model. I think the idea is, look, if you have some skills that maybe are not the most relevant skills in the market that you were in, can you take those skills to do something else, or can you redefine your your value in some different way? And I use the example of Swatch. I mean, Swatch. First of all, Swatch is a group. The people tend to think Swatch is only as the Swatch brand. Swatch was created as a group of some watchmaking companies, and some companies actually make the insides of the watches. And some of the brands that they have are brands like Omega and Longines and Rado. They've been being killed by the Japanese horse watches
Mm,
because they basically were trying to just compete on accuracy, and suddenly the Japanese watches were so much better.
mm,
And I think the genius of when they put this together, they bring a consultant, a CEO, and surprisingly, he came up with some brilliant reinvention where he says, "Well, let's try to make the Swiss watch to be an emotional purchase." So
mm,
the brand Swatch gets created for that, and then little by little, the watches, the Swiss watches become much more of icons
yeah.
of craftsmanship, and they start to mean all the things. And the interesting thing is that for a while, even though the volume of the market, that the watch market that's coming from Switzerland is actually quite small, they are the biggest revenue capturers in that space. That's one example.
Mm,
And then another, uh, it's Fuji, which Fuji with is an interesting comparison to Kodak, because Kodak, both of them were chemical companies,
mm,
and both of them kind of failed to get into the digital photography. But Kodak more or less died, and Fuji said, "Well, we can use this this knowledge that we have in a lot of other markets, and they are actually still very successful producing chemicals for a variety of applications, healthcare, and all.
Oh,
And then
okay, interesting. Yeah.
the last strategy, which I include because it is a strategy. It's not really. It's often not enough to win, but it's a delay, and it's simply stall. So, and
Mm.
this is something incumbents do all the time. They try to okay, you use regulation. You try to say no, these guys are. You try to create a bit of fear in the market. I personally think that incumbents very often go into the stall mode as the default strategy, and I think that's a mistake. But I will say a stall as a tactic, it's it's something that gives you time, and if you're really trying to embrace some of the other things, stalling could be part of a reaction, but certainly not the kind of thing that's going to take you completely stop disruption.
No, I think the active word there is that if you use it as a conscious strategy, you stall to be able to implement some of the other things. That might be fine. If you stall because you're a deer in the headlight and that's your only reaction and the only thing that you do, that might not be very fine.
100%.
Yeah. Super interesting. You've talked about kind of like antibodies, and I want to get into the dynamics of what's happening in these management teams. How come some of these discussions can be very difficult to have? And since you also had the history of being part of the Nokia team during the very interesting years, for people on the outside, I think there would be kind of this sense of the problem is that nobody dares to speak the truth to the stakeholders with power and so forth. What's your kind of view on that and your experience, both from the Nokia side, but also from the years in McKinsey and Silicon Valley and so forth?
I think first of all, it is fundamental for any company that's facing disruption, and frankly, in any point in time, that the company allows an open debate. Because if you're not hearing the dissenting voices, you're eventually going to hit the wall. You're going to continue the course. I don't believe that the account that people have of Nokia as, hey, we are, this is a place where there's no discussion and so forth. Maybe that's a little bit of some of the external way of dealing with it. They may not accept it in public, but yeah, I was head of corporate strategy, and I saw from the beginning we were discussing lots of things. I mean, there were
Mm,
very radical things that were discussed, including making massive acquisitions, including doing a lot of reshaping of the company. I mean, we actually ended up ultimately doing a joint venture to merge our networks business with Siemens, which eventually was bought back and is what's left of Nokia now.
mm,
But to me, the cultural aspect uh, that I saw is a culture of where you could actually discuss. And I'll give you one example. I had just arrived in Nokia, and I had been my entire working life in Silicon Valley, and I was accustomed to a very, I mean, Silicon Valley often tends to be quite open in
mm,
the discussion and so forth. And I had a meeting with several people in Jorma Ollila. And Jorma was the CEO at the time. He's mythical figure at the time, and we discussed, and at the end he overruled something that I thought it was the right thing to do, and I was a little upset. And when I leave his room, I mean, I didn't think I slammed the door, but maybe I closed it a little too hard, and then I kind of realized, maybe that he's gonna be upset with me and so forth. I've been here for like 2 weeks, and like 2 or 3 more weeks later, I have another meeting with Jorma and other people. And at the end of the meeting, Jorma says, "Can you stay behind?" And I stay with him for a second, and he literally said, "You know what you did the other day? It's fine, just because we don't have enough people slamming the doors around here."
mm.
So I
Yeah,
think I think to me that was really, I mean, there was a desire actually
yeah.
to get feedback. Now, you gotta understand, Finnish people are. are very taciturn. They don't talk very
Mm,
much. They maybe I mean, and people in Nokia, the leaders were almost mythical figures at the time. They were
mm,
so strong. So so there were probably some fear, and the leaders might have done better to encourage others to participate. But I really don't think that the issue on in Nokia was that there was no debate.
yeah.
Uh, the issue is that there was no decision,
Mm,
and that's maybe the keys.
yeah. It's a separate thing. Yeah, that's interesting. One of the things that I feel is kind of subtle but very interesting is that if you take during it like a say that a disruption period in reality might be 2 3 years long from start to finish, and it's kind of I forget whose quote it is, but like how do you go broke? Slowly, slowly, and then suddenly, right? And so in
Yes, it's
reality,
from Hemingway.
Hemingway, yeah. So it's interesting, like the total period might be quite long, and during this period, if you take each decision in isolation, it might be the very rational decision, but taken as a collective, it's completely the wrong direction. And how would you kind of discuss with these very senior leaders? Say that you're talking with a CEO who's preparing a meeting for the board, where he's understanding for himself that this kind of self cannibalization that we need to do makes no sense looked at isolation here now. Like, how would you deal with this?
You need to be authentic, and you need to try to say what you believe. I think is
Mm,
if you're not in a culture where you're allowed to do that, you're probably better off going somewhere else because
mm,
I think that's already a problem.
mm.
But if you are in a culture where you can speak up, speak up, but then try to understand what will it take that leader to change, because often there's going to be when there is disruption, and as you say, that you have to make a lot of decisions, and decisions sometimes it's rational to continue, but you need to do something more radical in some spaces. What happens is there's never going to be consensus, or
Mm,
there's never going to be a situation where, or I wouldn't say never, but almost never, people are going to say 100% are going to say, let's just all do change.
mm.
Because there will be some people that will see the more incremental approach as being better. And so at the end, the leader has to make an uncomfortable call.
Yeah,
And that comes down to, and we can talk a bit about peacetime versus wartime leadership. But
yeah,
when you're having to make this call, I think one of the things that I feel I should have done better at Nokia is to really understand the persuasion dynamics on the team. I mean, it's not enough just to be right, but
yeah,
you have to be able to get others to act. And at these particular times, it's really important in disruption times. It's really important to consider the whole person and try to think about, but if from their point of view, and how could you move them in that respect. And that's my advice. It's not easy, but I think that would be the
yeah. And
what I
coming
would
back
suggest.
almost to the culture of optimizers. In the culture of optimizers, almost all decisions are derived from the point of view of like follow the data, look at the process, look at
Yeah.
the revenue. It's very numerical driven. Whereas in times of change, it's very story driven. Like I feel a lot of times like storytelling is kind of a lost art in like senior leadership, in strategy, and especially now looking because I work in like implementing AI for companies, and a bunch of them, like after a successful pilot, but like how much data can you really gather in a pilot? There comes this point where it's like either we believe it or we don't. Like we can't
Yes.
just wait for more data. But that's very counterintuitive in the culture
Yes.
because every decision that we've taken has been based on data. Like, do you see the kind of tension that I'm looking for here?
I look. First of all, thank you. I love the contrast of data and stories, because it's not a something. I not use the word story, and I will use it going forward if you allow me to steal it from
Yeah,
you.
feel free.
But I do think it's a really good position. I mean, the truth is, because of in these Z curves, there the impact is very small at the beginning. It doesn't show in the numbers in a
Mm,
significant way. It shows,
yeah.
or it shows in some little corner of the numbers, and it's very easy to ignore it. For example, if you're like in the case of Nokia in 2008, yeah, we could see that the market share of Apple was growing in a few spaces, but because we were growing even faster in other places,
Mm,
who cares? And it's
yeah.
very easy to say everything is the data is telling you to do that, but you do need to have that conviction. I talk about vision and courage, but I like the idea of story, because it really is you have to have a perspective of how this story is going to evolve,
Yeah.
and be able to convince people. So yes,
I'm going to tell you the
very good.
full story of this because I got it from another podcast guest, Anthony Taskell, who is an epistemologist. So he understands where words come from and so forth. So he'd been studying business strategy, and the word strategy is a Greek word for strategos, which is the general
Yes,
of the troops. Um, and he had this vision of like you can see two generals standing at top of their troops, and then you have tactics, which is all of the troop formations and all of the kind of logic of things. And then you can imagine that one of these armies also has the element of the story. We are fighting for our freedom. We're fighting for protection of our families. And you can kind of imagine how impactful, like you might have exactly the same tactics and troop positions and the number of troops and anything. But the story gives you something else, gives you something more.
yes.
And for me, that was such a click moment. Like, wow, that really makes sense.
It's a really good way to look at it, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's a bit related also to what people sometimes call the job to be done for your customer. Like we tend to forget what are we here for. I
Mm.
mean, like in the war for your family or for God or
Yeah.
for country, and you end up being focused on the short term metrics of
Yeah, the number to hit this
which frankly,
quarter.
yeah, what do we can we do this quarter? And
Yeah.
so it's a very interesting thing. The other thing, by the way, where I like the war metaphor is there's a very interesting book that I borrow that for one of the title for one of my chapters. It's called The Hard Thing About Hard Things,
Yeah. I've read the book actually.
and
It's a fantastic book.
it's a great book. It's
Yeah.
by Ben Horowitz. He's one of the founders of Andreessen Horowitz.
It's him
Um,
who did the peacetime and the wartime leader, right?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
that I was literally. So I was gonna say. So he talks about how in in tough time he talks up more about from a startup perspective, but it's true in disruption. He thinks about how pretty much all the difficult decisions are about people and about change. But then he describes that there's two kinds of leadership. There is peacetime leadership and there is wartime leadership. In peacetime, the leader wants to do as little as possible, almost to inspire others,
Yeah.
and to get to let things flourish. And I mean, you're almost like an enabler. But
Mm.
in wartime, you will have to make some tough calls. If we're not all in agreement, we still need to do something.
Yeah.
And this kind of leadership is one of the challenges that we have. I mean, I am I'm quite friendly with Olli-Pekka Kallasvuo, the CEO of Nokia that succeeded Jorma, and I mean he was an outstanding peacetime CEO.
Mm.
He foresaw the growth of Nokia for several years, but he was more of a consensus builder. He was not necessarily a technology visionary. So when he's faced with the challenge of responding with the iPhone, he kind of resorted to doing a lot of the same things that he was doing, and that led to to slowness in our response.
Mm.
And I think that's one of the key things that we need to all think about, even when we're in peace, is how would we act if we really needed to turn this ship quickly? And most companies are not prepared for that.
No, I think it's interesting. We've both been in the field of strategy for a long time, you longer than I. And there's always this
All,
question that arises from customers in terms of, is top down or bottom up the right approach to strategy? And I don't think that there's one answer to it. It's about having clarity. Are you in a peacetime situation or in a wartime situation?
for most kind of ongoing decisions, the bottom up approach is gonna do better because people
Yeah.
on the front line are gonna have a better view. But there are some really difficult decisions that are above the vision level, the viewpoint of almost anyone,
Mm.
unless you're on the top, and you kind of have to mesh those two things.
And the ability to be like the peacetime consensus and engagement is so important that you kind of confuse as the leader, like the importance of taking popular decisions, and just
That's
that
right.
ability to be unpopular, to like, you can say a lot of things around Elon Musk or Richard Branson or but there might be a reason why some like exceptionally interesting leaders from a strategy perspective are also kind of assholes, if that makes sense. I
Well,
and I had a
I mean, they don't need to be. I mean, there's a really interesting story about Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix, and
yeah,
for a long time, what Netflix did is they managed to keep they kept these two things together. So you had that one subscription, and you got CDs, and you also got the
nice.
streaming, and that's one of the secrets they used to maintain to get some edge. But at some point, it became clear that nobody really cared about the CDs anymore. Or very few, well, there were some people who care, but the majority of people care only
Mm,
about streaming. So he decided that it was the time to make the call and separated the business. He basically ended up more or less divesting the shipping business. But when he did it, because Reed Hastings was, um, a very charismatic leader. He was right a lot and so forth. He was convinced that you look at the pricing of the CD business, and you compare it with competitors, and you were to the competitors are at $10 a month. Well, $10 a month is fine for that, and we do the same thing for the um, for the streaming business. The difference is all the people that had both of them before, they were paying like 13 for the two of them. So the next day they have almost a doubling of their price. So there was a massive backlash. It was terrible. And why does this have to do with what you were discussing? The CEO had made this decision and had discussed with the team, but the team, almost everyone in the team were not happy about this decision, but they said, "Well, Reed is so good, will do it." And so Reed Hastings actually ended up realizing that he had made a completely bad decision, and he didn't want to do it again. So from that point on, he asked his team to whenever an important decision was made, they actually have to put in writing their view, and if they challenge something, they had to do it explicitly, and
mm,
it suddenly just improved the quality of the decision. So,
yeah,
I guess a leader, when a leader becomes so strong, sometimes people start to just default that,
yeah.
oh, I'm sure he or she is going
He's
to
a
do it
magic
right,
maker.
or
Yeah.
maybe I have a concern, but I don't know if I should say it. So it's funny. So some of them may be a bit of an asshole types, but some of
Mm,
them are almost even if they don't want to, they
mm.
end up being perceived as such because they're unopposed at times.
I think it's Julius Caesar who has when he has the victory tour in coming back from one of the conquests of Gaul, and he has a slave reminding him in his ear, "Remember that you're mortal. Remember that you're mortal."
Yes.
Right? It's interesting. Hey, I want to
No,
ask you as
that's
well before we before we kind of leave this. Do you think when you look at disruptions, do you think that AI disruption has more similar shapes and tastes and flavors to other disruptions, or are there unique things around AI disruptions, would you say?
The patterns of disruption will apply to AI for the most part, but I think there are a couple of things that are unique. Um, the the first thing is that it really is not almost a disruption that affects. I mean, disruptions tend to affect one. They tend to affect directly a few of the producers of certain technologies, and then they tend to affect indirectly others. I mean, internet is a very good example. For example, where the internet um, changed quite a lot of the industry, the tech industry that was behind, but also started to affect retail when you have e-commerce, started to affect banking. But I think the because AI is so much about cognitive work, almost any industry that has cognitive work is going to be affected. So the breadth of it is maybe not completely unique, but it is probably the broadest that we've ever seen.
Mm,
And then the second thing is, one pattern, and there's a quote by Bill Gates that where he basically says that people tend to overestimate what's going to happen in the next couple of years, and then they underestimate what's going to happen in a decade. I think in the case of AI, we are definitely probably overestimating the impact in very short term. This, I think, is likely uh, going to is going to follow the typical patterns. But it's difficult to say how we underestimate the impact on the long term because it's something that
mm,
can change so much work.
yeah.
The scenarios for almost the human society are
Mm.
so varied and so different that in some ways that's a quite unique thing in AI.
I think it's Mo Gavda, the previous Google X CEO, who said that we will end up on a beach as a consequence of AI, either with drinks in our hands or hiding from the machine. So, like,
Yeah, I mean
uh,
there's
but I agree,
yeah, there's so many outcomes.
and it's so interesting to because I've been thinking a lot, obviously, around this, and like in the example of I think the Wright brothers, who like the ambition of the airplane that was that maybe this could be interesting for the U.S. military, right? And like look at how it connected the global society, and it's really interesting to even try to fantasize around like what will the future actually look like? Like this, it's so difficult, and it's almost to the point of well, small tangent, but I get this question a lot since I come from strategy and now have a AI company. I get the question, do you have a strategy even for your company? Because I've been thinking a lot around this. Does it make sense to have a strategy in an environment that is so incredibly fast moving? Or is the strategy to be just super rapid? What would you say in on that one?
Well, first, I'd love to hear what you say when you get asked.
So my experience has been, since I've been working in strategy for a long time, that the two major trends that I've seen is that strategies are getting shorter and shorter. So quick side note: my father used to be the CEO of one of the big Swedish banks, and when I talked with him when I was 16 years old around like how the bank was run and so forth, strategy seemed to be almost this decree coming from God, and we have this like our
Yes.
strategy is running a decentralized structure with very strong local bank branches with high mandate. That it like strategy was a permanent thing, and so strategy horizons has been shrinking a lot in time. And the second one is that they're getting increasingly cross-functional, especially in larger companies, mostly, I would say, technology-driven. Um, Having that as a preamble, I currently don't really have a strategy as such because it's so dependent on what will, for example, the big guys do in terms of McKinsey and those people. Like when
Yes.
are they going to figure out what companies actually needs in terms of professional services in this space? My experience right now is that they're struggling so much with their internal adoption. So like my strategy will pivot the moment that they figure it out. But for now, there's like a complete white space, and I'm just chasing, chasing, chasing to get the market share. It's kind of interesting knowing that you're in a window of time where this will be highly successful, and then it will become a point where this is not successful anymore. And that's interesting. Like, how much do you invest towards that area in terms of building reusable assets and whatnot? And then the second one is like it's almost like it's frenetic keeping up, especially as an advisor to companies on AI. You have to be on the kind of front line, but it's almost impossible because it's happening
So yeah,
so fast. So I've been kind of moving more towards like I have to be fine from a strategic perspective that we're gonna probably end up becoming like more niche specialists on some things, whereas we started out as broader like strategy. But it's interesting. No, I wouldn't say that I have a strategy. I have very clear in terms of like ideal customer profile and in terms of the value and the differentiation versus the rest of the market, but not necessarily strategy in its truest sense.
from my perspective, I think there are maybe three things to think about when you're. I mean, one is what you started with, and I mean, there's one of the best thinkers in strategy today is Ritten McGrath from Colombians. He wrote a book about the end of competitive advantage, and we
Mm,
had this idea before that competitive advantage is something that you kind of lasted pretty much forever,
mm,
and what we have now is that you get an advantage, but within a very short period of time that advantage
yeah,
stops working, and you need to adjust. So I think the speed is really quite unique, I think. I think the second thing is that is that we need to acknowledge uncertainty. Most strategies are really bad at acknowledging uncertainty. And by the way, this happens a lot in disruptions, because disruptions and technology adoption are full of uncertainty. You don't really know if the
mm,
technology is going to take off, when is it going to take off, how big, and so and I outline in my book a lot of the reasons why that's the case. But the truth is, we have plenty of examples where even the best in the industry have failed to forecast what's going to happen. So the truth is, we don't know, and therefore we need to think about a strategy not just as a certainty in a path, but actually
mm,
as a set of moves. And I think that's one of the things. And then the final thing is when things get so confusing as they are now with AI, and it's clearly that that's the case. Um, maybe it's less about having a strategy per se, as in a clear mandate, and more having some kind of strategic intents. Or I
mm.
mean, I feel that when I use these to disrupt my industry, or I have an opportunity to build this. But it's really very difficult. I think anyone who has a 3-year plan where they know exactly what's going to happen, they're probably lying to themselves.
Absolutely. And I think curiosity is a huge like it's interesting because like strategy feels like a very intellectual pursuit, right? You have a series of interconnected bets that are intended to kind of strengthen each other and so forth. Whereas like speed has the advantage and being like incredibly curious for like early signals, which are more like behaviors and are almost to the point of personality traits, and being willing
Yeah.
to kind of accept that whatever worked a quarter ago might not be interesting at all. And it's being. I've had a bunch of conversations as well around innovation. If you're gonna be innovative, you have to, from a cultural or personality perspective, also be incredibly not confident, but comfortable with failure. And to me, that's
Absolutely.
also interesting. Like, yeah, I have to make bets that are gonna suck, and that's fine. That's part of it, right?
This is frankly one of the things where that keep us in Europe a bit behind the US, because we're much more. worried about failing. And
Mm.
I mean, of course, everyone is afraid of failing to some extent, but failure is, I mean, certainly in Silicon Valley is considered to be a quite normal thing. Somebody had a couple of failed startups, they still might raise a lot of money to do the third one because
Mm.
they had a good idea. But here, a lot of people are much more worried about not making a mistake. But
Yeah.
going back to something you said at the beginning, you know, I believe that one of the key things that you need to do is to make strategy truly strategic. And what I mean by that is that strategy should be about really exploring possibilities, about embracing different changes, and then maybe at the end you go back to this is what we continue to doing what we're doing. But majority of strategy processes start from the assumption that we just keep on doing what we're doing. Okay,
Yeah.
how much more we do? Do we invest a bit more in this market or that other market? Um, but it's very much a almost like a planning process rather than a strategic process. And I think that's one
Yeah.
of the things that's very important these days.
But I want to get back to you. You open up the idea of a little bit comparison between the US and Europe. Uh, Maybe we can kind of close out the podcast there because you have this unique experience. You've lived in Silicon Valley, you live in Europe. What are the kind of primary differences do you feel? Is it the capital story that we hear a lot of, like investment are so much easier in the US, or is it talent? Like where do you end up with in this discussion?
I mean, first of all, it's undeniable that Europe is falling behind in technology, and as a result, is falling behind. Period.
Mm,
Because if you look at the growth of the economies in the U.S. and China, technology is a huge component of the growth, and in Europe we are seeing lower growth, which to a large extent is because if you think about the top software companies, the top semiconductor companies, the top um, internet services companies, we have basically ASML and SAP, and that's about it. And then
mm,
the next tier, like people like Dassault Systems or Amadeus or so forth, they're really global leaders, but they're still quite small compared
mm,
to many other companies in the US, for example,
yeah.
and or China. Is not debatable that we are falling behind. This is clear. Now the question is why? I mean, personally, I think the talent is definitely not the issue. I mean, maybe it's a little bit the issue in the sense that our education system maybe is not as modern. I mean, still there's a little bit more. Depends on. I mean, I think the Nordic countries have done a better job than others in that respect, but it's still a bit more traditionalist,
Mm,
memorization, and so forth, and less. But having said that, look, we have lots of Europeans in Silicon Valley. We have lots of Europeans that have been inventors of technology. So I really do not think that talent is the issue. I also don't think that capital is the main issue. Yes, it is an issue in the sense that it's just harder, but it's harder because the capital goes where the opportunity is. And I think
mm,
if we had enough big ideas that were investable here, we'd probably be getting the same type of capital infrastructure that you have in the US. There's also some barriers. I mean, we are not a single country with
yeah.
a single language and mostly the same legislation. And this is it's a bit annoying, but I mean, there's so many little things that we have made it so that it's difficult to do business in Europe,
It's incredibly
including some broad legislation, like I
yeah,
mean, some of the GDPR has some great things to it, but also it's also has some things that make it very difficult for business
yeah.
to do things that are quite normal. But but then I do think at the end of the day, it comes down to to mindset, and I don't know how we changed our mindset, but we still. I mean, we are privileged in the sense that we live in this place that life is pretty good here,
Yeah.
and Americans are frankly willing to work harder, and they're willing to enjoy their lives less until they maybe make more uh, they accumulate more wealth. And part of it is again is our values, and I like our European values. That's why I live here
Mm.
and now in Silicon Valley. But part of it is also that willingness to take risks and to think out of the box and to embrace innovation. And I mean, there was an example. I wrote an article about the software industry in Europe and how it was falling behind. I wrote this with McKinsey about 5 years ago. I did a lot of interviews with different people, and there was a very colorful investor that I talked to. That it's a private equity investor that he said, "Well, he used a lot of words that maybe not worth using in a podcast, but he was literally telling me, look, the when I call an entrepreneur in the US and I said, hey, I like your company, I want to buy it for 100 million. Um, and I call a European with the same proposition, get very different answers. Like
Mm.
if I call a European, they're likely to say, really? Are you really okay? When can we meet and so forth? Because the European is kind of willing to, okay, I can cash out and just go and do something else. And the American would often come back and say, "What? 100 million? Are you crazy? You're insulting me!" And they will hang up. And then maybe eventually they will do the deal.
Mm.
But the initial view is, I'm going to the American entrepreneur is, I'm going to I'm going to just do something that changes the world. I'm gonna
Yeah.
become bigger than the biggest thing. And that's when you see people like, I mean, obviously people like Elon Musk are very extreme, but but for all of the things that we can like or not like about him, and he's definitely has a lot of characteristics for on both sides. I mean, he's been able to do a lot of incredible things. I mean, I mean, if you think about somebody who stars an electrical car company, a space company. SpaceX is probably one of the most innovative. Another disruption that people are not thinking about so much, which is the cheap space, because
Mm.
the price of sending things to space is much smaller. So there's all kinds of things that can be done, including, for example, there's people even thinking about building manufacturing in space for things like some medicines and so forth. But anyhow,
Yeah.
the point is, I do think is that level of ambition and that willingness of just sticking to it and being raw and taking risk.
I think it's interesting. I had a conversation with more a institutional investor, so not like VC early stage type investor, and he said that when we are approached by different investor teams for us to invest in the investor teams, one of the things that's the most interesting to have a conversation around is the previous failures that you've had and seeing
Hmm.
that you actually learn from the failures. So actually there's a value in having somebody who's failed a couple of times because they won't hit the
Exactly.
like stupid stuff. And that to me was like, very interesting. We look at failure as something so like it's on or off. You're a success or a failure, and that's
Yes.
a permanent state. Like you're a failed state now. Whereas I do think there's a ton of value in taking the shot and if you learn from it, of course. But that to me was like another lens on failure that I think it's easy to miss. Alberto, it's been a true pleasure having you on the podcast. I wish you all the best with the book. Where can people find you and find the book?
The book is called the Z Curve, and it's available in Amazon. So available in Amazon Sweden. I checked. It's in most countries, and it's going to be it's available for pre-order and will be shipping in about a week from now. So
Yeah,
that's June 25th to June 30th is going, and then I mean you can look me up in LinkedIn, or you can write me an email, alberto.torres@gmail.com, and I would definitely love to engage with people who are going through this type of thinking as well. And
fantastic.
thank you so much for having me here. It was really I love the conversation. Also learned a few things, so it's really been great.
Yeah, this was a fun one. Thank you so much. And there, we're at the end of the episode. I think it's so amazing that almost 70% of you actually listen to the end of the episodes, especially for long format. I'm so thankful for that. Like, the engagement numbers is fantastic. Before we leave each other, two things. First off, this episode was sponsored by Grail, and I'll make no secret about Grail is the company that I'm starting. So it's the future of AI, and how can we unlock value that's not just automation, but actually building towards a future that we want to live in, like a future where I want to work, augmentation. So head over to grail.works to know more. Secondly, I'd appreciate so much that you listen to this podcast, but even though 70% listen to the end, almost 70% are not subscribed either. So if you can give a like button, a subscribe to all my channels, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok apparently, we have an awesome webpage. There's so much more content, like yes, the reels and so forth, but what I really would like to push for is that every week I publish a long format article, which is the pinnacle of my thinking. So it's the most interesting thing that I come across that week, either in podcasts or in other endeavors. And I try to write about it towards you, a senior leader. Like, what is the crucial takeaway from the most important part of my week, let's say? I publish that on LinkedIn and on my webpage, thinkroompodcast.com. Thank you so much, and see you next time.